Hey, everybody, I'm Andy, and welcome to this week's Team Kentucky Update. Today, we start where we always start, with great news for our Kentucky economy. Once again, Kentucky is placed in the top 5 for economic development per capita in Site Selection Magazine's new 2024 Governor's Cup rankings. I'm proud to say that we have been in the top 5 every year that I've been governor, and I think only one other state can say that. In the South Central region, Kentucky placed second for regional projects per capita, as well as third for total projects. And that's putting us up against every other Southern state, regardless of its population. In addition to the Commonwealth's strong placement in the South Central region, several Kentucky communities were recognized for their economic success in 2024 with categories based on population size. For the second year in a row, Bowling Green placed first by total projects among metro areas with populations between 50,000 and 200,000. The community also moved to the top spots in the projects per capita category. This is big news. I don't remember seeing the same city that size repeat back to back, at least since I've been following this the last 15 or so years. But there's lots of other Kentucky communities that also ranked so high compared to the rest of the nation. Paducah and Owensboro also placed in the top 10 of that same category for both total projects and projects per capita, meaning we had 3 Kentucky cities in the top 10. Louisville, Jefferson County, as well as Northern Kentucky, Cincinnati region, both took spots in the top 10 for metros per capita for populations over 1 million, in addition to Northern Kentucky, Cincinnati placing 7th in total projects. Lexington, Fayette County placed 5th in projects per capita and tied for 9th overall in top metros with populations between 200,000 and 1 million with 25 projects. Paducah was recognized with top 10 spots in the 2024 top Mississippi River Corridor Metro rankings. In addition, 8 Kentucky communities placed in the top micropolitans based on number of projects. That's the 6th most nationally. They include Richmond, Berea, Corbin, Frankfort, Somerset, Campbellsville, Danville, Franklin, and Madisonville. These Governor Cup rankings showcase what we already knew. Kentucky has been on a roll, and we are positioning ourselves for long-term success. Hundreds of new and expanding companies are selecting our new Kentucky home for their projects and creating jobs throughout the Commonwealth. I'm proud to see not only the recognition that we've had as a state, but to be able to recognize all of these great communities for their really hard work. Since my time as Attorney General and now as Governor, the safety of all Kentuckians, but especially our children, has been a top priority. As Attorney General, my team arrested a record number of child predators and trained thousands of Kentuckians to recognize, report, and prevent child abuse and human trafficking. When I became governor, my successor, General Cameron, told us that he wanted to use that group in the Attorney General's office to focus more on financial crimes. Thankfully, the Kentucky State Police absorbed this mission to protect our kids from online exploitation and to hunt down these child predators that would cause harm to our children. Today, I'm proud to update you on that work. Since I became governor, the Kentucky State Police has arrested 309 child predators for cyber crimes involving internet-related crimes against Kentucky's children. The message they're sending is clear. There is no place for child predators to hide in Kentucky. We will find you. We will arrest you, we will prosecute you, and then we will incarcerate you for what you have done or what you're trying to do. As a dad, I want every Kentucky child to be safe from harm. But as governor, it's my job to continue that next step and next step and next step to make them safer. Today, we have Lieutenant Mike Bowling, commander of the KSP Electronic Crime Branch, and Jill Seyfried, Executive Director of Prevent Child Abuse Kentucky, to talk about the work they're doing to keep our children safe. Come on up. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. I appreciate the the kind words, and we are working hard to do just that. Last time I was here, we talked pretty general about internet safety and some tips that parents can use to keep their kids safe. I want to kind of dive and get into some specifics today with you about some current trends that we're seeing that are very concerning and on the rise. The first is financial sextortion. And we are very concerned about the surge that we are seeing in these complaints coming in. And what that is where a perpetrator will coerce a child to sharing explicit content and then demand payment, or they will show those to other people. Now, I'll kind of explain what we see every day in our office. You have a perpetrator develop a relationship with a child online on messaging apps and social media. Once that trust is earned, they ask for a photograph, a picture, explicit photograph. And once they have that, they will threaten. If you don't send me more, I'm going to show this to your friends. I'm going to show this to your family. I'm going to show this to your school, your church, etc. Here's their names, and this is what will happen. And there's never enough photographs sent. There's never enough money that can be sent for this to stop. So our kids are suffering mentally, and they're suffering continuously. This is a very fast-paced crime. It happens in basements. It happens in our children's bedrooms at night while we're asleep, and it's continuous. It's devastating and tragically linked to self-harm. Now, there are some things that obviously we can look for as parents. You look for social isolation. You look for withdrawal. You look for that phone to always go with them. If they're going to the restroom or they're going to the kitchen or they're going to a place where you're not at, that phone's in the pocket, or you walk in, it suddenly goes off or goes face down on the table. You know your families, and you know your children, you know your friends better than I do. You know what that normal behavior is like, and you know what a deviation from that behavior is. And when you see that deviation, we need to have continued talks. Now, I would want you to have those talks before these incidents happen, to warn our children what's online and the dangers that are out there. Secondly, we're seeing a rise in AI, or deep fake images, or deep fake exploitation. And that is offenders manipulating real images of children and making entirely what we call synthetic CSAM, or synthetic child sexual abuse material. And this is new material that is being added and circulated online. So this is two main problems that we're seeing a drastic increase in. And it used to be stranger danger. That's what I was taught growing up as a kid. Be careful what talking to strangers. Be careful what they say to you, what they offer you. But now it can often be peers in school and acquaintances. Most of these crimes start and begin on social media or gaming system ecosystems. So be familiar with what they do online. Be familiar with the apps they have downloaded. Be familiar with the games. Don't be afraid to walk into that child's room, put a headset on, and see what they're saying online. See what they're saying when they're gaming. Just be involved. And I appreciate the governor talking about our recent successes. We worked very hard. We have recently upfitted our forensic laboratories with the latest equipment. We have 2 ESD canines, Cam and May, we're very proud of. And I love to take them on presentations because it doesn't matter what I say. If you got Cam or May with you, everything is fine. Community outreach. And this is very important. Getting into our schools, our parent organizations. We have done virtual presentations, podcasts. We teach at our KSB Training Academy and also at the Department of Criminal Justice Training, getting the word out to investigators, what to look for, how to be prepared, how to work these investigations when they're called. And lastly, our partnerships, especially with Prevent Child Abuse Kentucky. We've got Jill over here, and I don't want to take any of your line items, but what a blessing they have been to the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. And speaking of the task force, our federal, state, and local partners that work on that task force, that work tirelessly 24/7, 365 to protect our kids. In closing, I just want to stress that Our fight against internet crime isn't just for investigators. It's a team effort, and our community is a vital partner in that. Every parent that spots a warning sign, every teen that reports a threat, and every neighbor who spreads the word of awareness brings us closer to stopping these predators. Together, we're not just reacting, we're preventing harm and protecting our kids, and that itself can be a deterrent. But I thank you so much for your time. Let's keep working hand in hand together to keep our community safe, both online and off. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Jill Seifert, Executive Director of Prevent Child Abuse Kentucky. Thank you, Governor. Thank you, Lieutenant Bowling. We appreciate the opportunity to be here today. Prevent Child Abuse Kentucky is a statewide child abuse prevention organization, and we have 330 partners across the state, not the least of which is the Kentucky State Police and our Governor's Office. One statistic that I did not hear Lieutenant Bowling say, which I think is very important for everybody to understand the magnitude that we're talking about, Kentucky State Police, the Electronic Crime Branch, receives an average of 1,000 tips every month of every year, and it keeps increasing. Some months that number is in excess of 1,400. So if you boil that down, that is almost 33 tips or referrals are received every day of the year. So just think about what you are doing throughout the course of your day and think of 33 children who are being impacted that day. We know that sextortion, which Lieutenant Bowling mentioned, most commonly occurs via phone, tablet, messaging apps, social networking sites, and video chats. And we also know that predators use a variety of tactics to entice children. One of the partners that Lieutenant Bowling I know works with is the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. And according to them, 78% of the time, sextortion happens with the goal of acquiring increasingly more explicit sexual content of the child, which goes to what Lieutenant Bowling was mentioning. To that end, we are proud that we have worked with the Kentucky State Police to develop some educational and awareness resources, one of which is our Internet Safety Coloring Book featuring Cam and May that Lieutenant Bowling mentioned. And then we also have a series of parenting slicks, just really quick front and back tips on gaming, cyberbullying, and internet safety. We encourage you to go to our website, pcaky.org, to get both of these items. You can also call us, 225-8879, area code 859, and we are happy to ship these materials for free to you. In closing, we want to again thank the governor for his devotion and attention to this matter, and the Kentucky State Police for our partnership. And we have a lot more work to be done, and we are counting on Kentuckians to help us. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. Thank you, Lieutenant. Your teams make us proud. You do important work. Thank you for protecting Kentucky's children. And everybody out there, remember, reporting child abuse isn't just the right thing to do. It is your legal obligation. We all have an obligation under the law when we believe that a child is being abused to report it. But please go online. Make sure you get Prevent Child Abuse Kentucky's materials so that you can better protect your family. Remember, the best thing is prevention. Is making sure a child never goes through that trauma at all. Next up, also in the area of public safety, today we're awarding over $2.1 million in federal grant funding to 7 agencies across the Commonwealth in support of projects and programming that will increase public safety. The funding is being awarded through the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act of 2022. The 7 agencies are the Kentucky Administrative Office of the Courts, Fayette County Public Schools, Lexington-Fayette County Urban Government, Maryhurst, a nonprofit in Louisville, Mountain Comprehensive Care Center, 7 County Services, and the University of Kentucky Research Foundation. These agencies will use this critical funding to increase public safety and help keep children and families safe, and so that they feel safe in their communities. Today's $2.1 million will be used to enhance the mental health court programming by providing alternative sentences for individuals with mental illness or addiction. It'll pair mental health professionals with emergency first responders to better assist individuals experiencing a mental health crisis in hard-to-reach areas. It will help our school staff respond to students in crisis and ensure they have access to mental health treatment and resources within the school system. It'll help ensure school resource officers are available at extracurricular activities to keep our kids safe. This money will also help families who have experienced violence, suicide, and many forms of trauma get counseling that they need and that will help. And it'll help launch 2 pilot programs at the University of Kentucky aimed at preventing suicide in patients ages 10 to 24 and our veterans by offering no-cost therapy services, safety planning, targeted assessments, and prevention initiatives. We have a video today from the University of Kentucky Research Foundation on these 2 pilot programs.
In the last year, we had 70 adolescents present to our emergency department having attempted suicide. When we looked back at these patients' charts, we found that 2/3 of them had been seen in our pediatric clinics within 90 days prior to their suicide attempt. And so we really have a critical opportunity to identify and support these kids in our pediatric clinics. The funding that we received through the Skip Burn program will enable us to start what's called a care team. The care team will be able to facilitate pediatric clinics and screening for suicidal thoughts. They'll be able to respond immediately and make sure that teens receive the appropriate level of care. And then they will also be able to provide ongoing treatment for suicidal thoughts for kids who are struggling to access some of the very busy therapy services in our region. So we're immensely grateful for this opportunity and, for what these funds will allow us to do for Kentucky adolescents.
Together, we're doing some of the most important work in our Commonwealth's communities. And together, we'll never stop fighting for our loved ones, our neighbors, and our friends who need access to treatment and resources to live fulfilling lives. This grant funding is a step in continuing that fight. Thank you to the 7 organizations who applied for and are receiving this funding. You earned it. You earned it because you are making a difference, and I'm proud to be your partner in this effort. All right, on a slightly lighter note, today we're announcing our latest winner of the new Kentucky Home giveaway. If you remember, folks can win a free 2-night stay at a Kentucky state park just by loving their Commonwealth and sharing positive photos on social media using the hashtag #NewKentuckyHome. Our goal is to reintroduce our new Kentucky home to the world, to increase economic investment, to attract and retain talent, and to increase tourism across Kentucky. And we want Kentuckians across the state to help us by sharing the parts of this Commonwealth that they love the most and posting positive images on social media. Together, we'll be saying we love Kentucky, and so will you. Come be a part of our new Kentucky home. Today's winner is Erica Bivens, who took a picture while shopping local at the Persnickety Pig in Cadiz, Kentucky. Erica, thank you for not only promoting our new Kentucky home, but also for supporting our small businesses. And congratulations on winning a free 2-night stay at one of our 44 Kentucky state parks. Our team will reach out and message you, but thanks for loving your state and thanks for promoting it to the entire world. We'll continue to draw 1 winner a month through April. This next month, so you have 1 more chance to win. So make sure to share your photos and the hashtag for your opportunity. Let's keep showing the world what we love about our new Kentucky home and realize that we can all be a part of a bright future here in Kentucky. Now, I want to turn it over to Dr. Stack, who has an update for us today on our healthy Kentucky home.
Thank you, Governor. I didn't expect I'd get to follow the Persnickety Pig special. So good afternoon, Team Kentucky. This month is our journey to a healthier Kentucky, promoting clear and attainable goals to achieve better health and wellness by eating at least 2 servings of fruits or vegetables every day, by exercising at least 3 times per week, and by engaging with others to stay socially connected. This month, our special focus is on cancer prevention. According to the Centers for Disease Control, 29,000 new cancer cases were reported in Kentucky in 2021. Of those, 52% were in men, and 52% were in men, and 48% affected women. Unfortunately, you can't control all of your cancer risks, such as your genetic makeup, age, family history, but you can, by incorporating moderate lifestyle changes into your daily routine, reduce your risk of developing cancer and add healthy years to your life. One way you can significantly reduce your risk of developing cancer is by maintaining a healthy weight. In fact, being overweight has been linked to 13 different types of cancer, which make up 40% of all cancers diagnosed each year in the United States. A healthy diet can help reduce your weight and lower your risk of cancer. A healthy eating pattern includes foods such as lean proteins, fresh fruits and vegetables, whole grains, and other foods high in fiber. Incorporate these into your daily meals and routine as a consistent preventive practice. Along with diet, regular physical activity is essential to cancer prevention. Physical activity can reduce inflammation, improve immune system function, and help regulate hormones to lower your risk of cancer. Consistently including 30 minutes of moderate exercise at least 3 times a week is a great way to decrease your risk. It's also important to remember to stay connected with others. Being socially connected helps protect against serious illnesses and diseases. Social connection also provides emotional encouragement, a sense of accountability, and practical assistance with cancer prevention efforts, all of which can have a positive impact on health and wellness. It's important to remember that cancer doesn't wait, so neither should you. Cancer screening is an essential part of cancer prevention. Getting routine cancer screenings improves your odds of finding several types of cancer, such as breast, cervical, colon, and lung cancers, before you have symptoms and when treatment is most likely to work best. Talk with your healthcare provider today to see what cancer screenings may be right for you. I also encourage you to sit down with your family to discuss your family health history. Sometimes the conversations we avoid with our loved ones are some of the most important ones to have. Understanding your family's health history is essential to your health and wellness and is essential to cancer prevention. If you have a family history of certain cancers, you may be at elevated risk for developing those types of cancers. So it's important to share this information with one another and with your healthcare provider. To learn more about cancer prevention or about healthy habits you can incorporate into your daily routine, be sure to visit the Our Healthy Kentucky Home website at ourhealthykyhome.ky.gov as we work together to ensure that every Kentuckian achieves better health and their full potential. Governor?
Well, thank you to Dr. Stack, and I'll see him again a little later this afternoon as we recognize the 5th anniversary of our first case of COVID here in the Commonwealth. But let me just echo the importance of getting your screenings. I have a history of cancer in my family. It's a type of cancer that is likely to afflict me at some point in my life, and I've therefore been getting screenings really about 10 years before other people do. It's so important, and ultimately will, if needed, let me know about it in enough time to where I'll be all right, and I can spend those great years watching my kids grow up and raise their own families. But we lose so many people who don't come in and get the screenings. We just recently talked about colorectal cancer and the fact that now at 45, you need to start getting that colonoscopy. Listen, nobody likes to think about that or do that, but as my parents always said, it's a lot better than dying. And so make sure that you're getting that. And if all Kentuckians are out there making sure that they get their screenings, then we're going to make a lot of happy memories as a Commonwealth, and you're going to be able to make more memories with your family. So please talk to your doctor that hopefully you're getting your physical every year. Learn about anything that runs in your family, and get each and every one of the cancer screenings that they recommend for you. Okay, we now have an update on our response to the recent flooding in Eastern Kentucky. Our fatalities still stand at 24, but remember, those families are hurting just as much today as they were yesterday. And so if you know them, reach out, offer to help. And if you don't know them, pray for them and find different ways you can be helpful for those families. Our expedited major disaster declaration now includes 14 counties. 3 more have been added. The counties will receive public and individual assistance, meaning the county is going to get help as well as individuals that can show the harm. These counties are on your screen. We've also received public assistance for 10 more counties. These are just counties getting public assistance, but haven't qualified for individual assistance. These are the counties, again, on the screen here: Ballard, Barron, Butler, Greene, Hart, Marshall, Metcalf, Rockcastle, Spencer, and Wayne. So the damage that was done, especially to county, city, and in fact, state infrastructure, there's going to be help from the federal government. We now have 8 disaster recovery centers open, with 2 more opening this afternoon. These are centers where if you are filing a FEMA claim, you should go and talk to the FEMA representatives. If you've had a claim denied, go to the disaster recovery centers and talk to the individuals that are there. There's also other federal and other state agencies that are there to help. As you can see, they are across the Commonwealth, and these 2 disaster recovery centers are opening for the first time today in Breathitt and in Clay counties. In addition to that, we currently have 1 business recovery center. That's at the Hazard Community and Technical College. Now, this information is subject to change, and we'll be updating the website as it does. That website is governor.ky.gov/flood-resources. You can go to that and find all the locations of disaster recovery centers and other important locations that you may need. An update on roads and bridges: we're down to only 22 state highways that are closed. 14 of those are still for flooding, and 8 are due to rock slides and mudslides. Now, we're still assessing the damage to our roads and bridges, but as we're here today, nearly 600 reports of damage requiring repairs for our state highways. And we performed 199 bridge inspections, and they're all safe, but 19 will require follow-up to identify repairs, and at least 87 of them were impacted in some way by debris. Our KYTC crews continue to assess damage, focused on repairs to restore roads quickly, and at least as quickly as possible. If you're in a flood-affected area, please drive with caution, as those repair crews are out there. They are Kentuckians that leave their families to try to make your roads and bridges as safe as they can be for you, so you get home to your family. How you drive around them determines whether they get home safely for their family. So look out for your neighbor. Remember that KYTC person working on the roads is your neighbor. So slow down and share the road to keep yourself and those KYTC employees safe. On debris removal, we've now received approval for federal assistance for debris removal in Knott, Martin, Perry, and Pike counties. That's going to be really helpful. It does come with a number of rules, but it's worth it to work through them. But right now, continuing to work the plan for debris removal. And I'd say for those living in the area, debris removal always seems like it takes too long. You want to get the chaos out, but once it starts in the full plan, it's done much more quickly than anyone could imagine. Watching once we had all the crews out in Eastern Kentucky after the 2022 floods, and the difference that it made day to day, week to week, and month to month was something incredible to see. The Kentucky National Guard is still on the ground, working hard to support flood-impacted communities. Right now, 82 guardsmen are helping with security, clearing debris, and getting supplies where they're needed the most. Engineers with our Guard are using heavy equipment to help clear roads in several counties, making sure folks can get back to their homes and jobs. We also have liaison officers in a number of counties that are continuing to field requests and make sure that before they head home, to their community that the communities that are impacted have things under control. The Guard continues to deliver critical supplies to local distribution points and has been moving approximately 13,000 pounds of critical supplies each day. We've also received approval to accept applications for disaster unemployment assistance from individuals in 14 counties who are out of work as a result of the severe storms beginning on February 14th. We also learned this week that 14 counties were approved for Disaster Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or DSNAP. Those counties are on your screen: Breathitt, Clay, Estill, Floyd, Harlan, Johnson, Knott, Lee, Letcher, Martin, Owsley, Perry, Pike, and Simpson. Last week, we also got news that the U.S. Small Business Administration had approved a disaster loan program for 22 counties, and that means that those small businesses are eligible for physical damage loans and economic injury disaster loans. Small business and most nonprofits in the adjacent counties are also eligible to apply for SBA economic injury disaster loans. These are the adjacent counties that have thus far qualified under the SBA program. Applications for disaster loans may be submitted online by using My SBA Loan Portal, or you can visit any disaster or business recovery center. If you have questions, you can contact the customer service via the number on the screen or by the email. The filing deadline for physical property damage is April 25th, 2025. The deadline for economic injury is November 24th, 2025. So again, the SBA folks are in the disaster recovery centers. You can go in, you can look at a FEMA person in the eye and talk about the damage to your home. You could look at an SBA representative in the eye and talk about damage to your business. Make sure that you get out there, you go into these centers. We've seen that people end up getting a better response, and I think a more fair award when they actually go and visit one of these facilities, one of these disaster recovery centers. Our state parks are currently sheltering 257 people at 5 state parks, occupying 103 rooms. And in a new announcement today, we're announcing that Jenny Wiley's Campground is also sheltering an additional 23 people in travel trailers. So we have initiated the travel trailer program, and right now it's housing the first 15 adults and 8 children. This is the type of intermediate housing for folks that aren't going to have a livable place to go back to in the near future. It's something that we first started after the tornadoes. We were able to do better after the 2022 flooding. This is a really important piece that you don't see some states rolling out. I'm proud that we do, and it's using the infrastructure that we put in place after the 2022 floods to hook up these travel trailers. More rooms at our state parks are open and available if needed. We are continuing to work on long-term housing to keep our families safe in the future, and those are the 7 high-ground communities with more plans on the way. We hope these new Kentucky homes will offer a bright, safe future. People should go to housingcan'twait.org. That's how flood survivors can submit an assessment, and then a FAHI rep will call you to talk through whether you might be eligible. So for some of these areas, you may be eligible to look at one of these homes that we'll be building if you were a victim of the 2021, 2022, or now 2025 flooding, some of which all hit the same areas. State funds, we continue to work with the state legislature to set up a pool of funding to help with long-term recovery efforts similar to the SAFE funds. Again, those discussions have only been positive and seem to be progressing. Earlier this week, Brittany and I also got to meet a number of our incredible swift water rescue teams. Brittany visited first responders from Northern Kentucky and Eastern Kentucky on Friday, and I got to meet teams from Louisville and Western Kentucky at the U of L basketball game on Saturday. The Cards won that night in front of their largest home crowd of the season. And let me tell you, when these first responders walked out onto the court, you could feel the love of our people in Kentucky. It was as loud as I have ever heard that arena or any arena really special with so many Kentuckians showing their gratitude towards these heroes. And let me tell you, they are heroes. In total, our Swiftwater teams rescued more than 1,000 Kentuckians in the first 24 hours of this flooding. These brave men and women traveled far from home for days on end, put in sleepless nights, and kept working so they could save the next person that needed them. Because of the sacrifices they made, so many Kentuckians got to be reunited with their families. As we recover from yet another disaster, it's easy to feel frustrated. It's easy to ask and wonder why. And while the why is tough about why Kentucky just keeps getting hit over and over, we see God in the response each and every time. These incredible heroes, in many ways, the hands and feet, were out there showing their values, their faith, how much they care about their fellow Kentuckians. So to all of them, we are grateful. All of Kentucky is grateful. And to everyone who suffered harm in this flood, we're going to be there for you, just like we've been there for everyone impacted by one of these disasters. And we'll be there until we get the job done, until your home and your life are rebuilt. All right, next, talking about Disabilities Awareness Day. As a person of faith, I believe that every child is a child of God, deserving of the same opportunities and a chance to live a meaningful, full life. Working towards that goal has always been a priority. That's why we relaunched Connect, which now has the most people getting their health insurance through it since the relaunch. It's why I signed an executive order to promote employment for people with disabilities through the Employment First Council. And it's why we're working to support organizations that provide accessible housing. Just last week in Henderson, I joined in breaking ground on Elevate Estates, which will provide housing for 64 Kentuckians with disabilities. This facility will also help folks with essential services like counseling, work skills training, education, and more. These are intentional steps that not only help us do better on the macro as a state, they help individuals live fuller lives. And this week, we took another step. I was proud today to sign a proclamation declaring next Tuesday, March 11th, as Disabilities Awareness Day in the Commonwealth. Let's take time to recognize the 847,000 Kentuckians living with disabilities and commit ourselves to continue to working to build an accessible and an inclusive Kentucky for all of our people. I got to sign that proclamation today next to Juliet, who I've known her entire life. Her dad, Mark, and I were working at the same law firm. I remember the day she was born, and watching her journey to live a full, independent life has taught me so much. It's taught me why we make these investments, has taught me the dignity in every person. And I'm really grateful for her impact and Mark's guidance throughout my life. Next, I want to remind Kentuckians about some exciting events we have coming up this month and in April. First, this upcoming Tuesday, March 11th, we have the 57th Annual Governor's Prayer Breakfast. The breakfast will take place at 7:30 a.m. at the William Exum Center at Kentucky State University here in Frankfort. Doors open at 7 a.m. This annual celebration recognizes Kentuckians living their faith through service to others. We'll get to hear some beautiful music from the Franklin County High School choristers. They were supposed to come that year that COVID hit 5 years ago. We're glad that they're finally coming back and able to have this opportunity. And our big feature this year will be a conversation with former University of Kentucky Wildcat and current New York Giants wide receiver Wandale Robinson, who is, of course, from right here in Frankfort. If your church, club, organization would like to attend as a group, it's easy to reserve a table by going online and filling out the form at governor.ky.gov/prayer breakfast. But of course, you're welcome to come yourself, and individual tickets are available at the door. It's going to be an incredible morning, and I hope to see you there. Then next Sunday, April 13th, we have our annual Easter egg hunt. This is one of my favorite events. We're inviting everyone to celebrate Easter at the South Lawn of the Capitol. That's the outdoor space between the Capitol and the Annex. It's free, and it's open to all. We're asking everyone to arrive about 2 p.m. and just like previous years, we'll have family fun activities, including an Easter egg hunt. And you want to make sure that you're there before that starts, because we have these huge lines of about 100 kids that line up at the field that all the eggs are in. And I'm supposed to blow a whistle, except we were playing a song the first year that had a whistle in it. And immediately all the kids flooded the area. It's just this joyful, incredible thing to see and to be a part of. We will have crafts for kids, food trucks, and yes, an appearance by the Easter Bunny. Everybody loved the Easter Bunny the first year except Winnie. It did scare her a decent amount. So Brittany, Winnie, and I look forward to this event every year. We love to see the excitement on the kids' face, and we hope to see y'all there. Finally, on Saturday, April 26th, we'll have our Team Kentucky Derby kickoff with Common Fest. This event is our way of starting the Derby Week festivities in Frankfort. It takes place on the south lawn of the Capitol from noon to 5. We have live music, vendors, food trucks, breweries, wineries, and craft distillers, artists, a farmer's market, games, activities, balloon artists, and so much more. I just realized that Rachel's helping us out, and I went through that really fast. So my apologies to Rachel. There are many unique things that make Kentucky such an incredible place, and it will be on display on Saturday, April 26th. We hope to see everyone there. And finally, our Team Kentucky All-Stars. So later this afternoon here at the Capitol, we'll be marking the 5th anniversary of the day we had our first COVID case reported in the Commonwealth. That was March 6th, 2020. I was only months into my term. And while I came into this thinking I might know more about this job than many who'd stepped into it, watching my dad do it for 8 years, I had no idea that starting that day, it'd be one of the toughest things that any of us as Kentuckians have ever lived through. I could not have known the level of death, disruption, and sadness that we'd all have to bear. One legacy of that time is the heartbreaking loss. And it's simply wrong to ever lose sight of the fact that this evil virus has caused the deaths of more than 1.2 million Americans and more than 20,400 of our Kentucky neighbors. But while we were going through the darkest of times, we also saw the brightest of lights. Our healthcare heroes, doctors, nurses, everybody who worked at our hospitals and clinics showing up and showing a level of courage that made most of us didn't even think was possible. These incredible professionals, including our own Dr. Stephen Stack, saved thousands of lives. They safeguarded the Commonwealth schools and businesses from the worst outcomes. We had doctors and nurses walking into increasingly packed COVID wings in the early days without the PPE that they needed, but they did it anyways, knowing that they could take that virus not only home and it could harm themselves, but they could even take it home to their family. It's going to be impossible to ever repay those healthcare heroes, but we can start by continuing to thank them, by not burying what we went through, and by recognizing that most of those healthcare folks that we're seeing today for a wide variety of things were there in the toughest times doing that work. They truly showed what living faith and values at the highest level, what selfless service is. I think they gave us all hope, because if they were strong enough to push through it, walking right into it, then we'd be strong enough to give up those things for a period of time that we'd have to keep other people around us safe. So today, in honor of the 5th anniversary, I'm naming all of our healthcare heroes and everybody who helped us get through a once-in-a-century pandemic, and we got through it together, our Team Kentucky All-Stars. And if you're in the Capitol today, we'll be marking the anniversary at 3 p.m. in the Capitol Rotunda. We'll also be live streaming it on YouTube. All right, we have 4 journalists here in the Capitol, and we have 2 online. So we'll start with Carolina.
Governor, Canada has responded to some of President Trump's tariffs. Some Canadian provinces are simply removing American liquor. Those in bourbon, understandably, are a bit shaky, a bit nervous about what could potentially come. What have you been talking about with Canadian leaders when you're on calls with them? Can you tell us a little bit about those conversations and how you're feeling about this entire situation?
Yeah, we now have enough data to show that President Trump's tariffs are harming the American economy, and they're certainly going to harm Kentucky's economy. These tariffs, which were the sole decision of this president against two countries that are our allies, especially Canada, which has stood with us in just about every international conflict in the past 100 years. President Trump started this trade war, and we all knew that if he did, other countries would have to respond and stand up for themselves. What they're going to do is raise prices on the American people. A president who is elected to lower prices is actively taking steps that are raising prices. A tariff on Canada is going to raise the price of gas, and it's going to raise the price of meat in our grocery stores. The amount that it raises, that's the Trump tax, because he's the individual who put those tariffs on that we, the American people, are going to pay. The amount that it's going to increase costs of automobiles, while supposedly there's a pause in tariffs on some of our big companies, I don't know that it applies to all the suppliers. Martin Ray in Hopkinsville is a Canadian company. The parts come from Canada to Kentucky to Mexico and back again. Think about the costs that occur there. Now, these tariffs are a bad idea, and it's not just me that's saying it. Mitch McConnell's saying it. Rand Paul has said it. And so when you have the two Republican senators and the Democratic governor all saying something's a bad idea, it's because it's a bad idea. My conversations with Canadian leaders are about the fact that I want them to consider their tariffs to be designed in places and areas where people aren't speaking up. We are. Kentucky's two senators and its governor, me, are speaking out against this move, trying to tell President Trump it is the wrong step to take. And let me just tell you, it's not just the imposition of tariffs. It's this month to month, I may do it to you at any moment. You can't create stability. And what we're going to see are companies not expanding, not adding new jobs. We actually saw what happened with jobs, in this latest report with companies worried about the uncertainty, actually laying people off. Listen, we had a surging economy, and President Trump is threatening to screw it up through these tariffs that are only going to hurt our people. McKenna.
Thank you, Governor. Later today, the Senate may vote on a resolution from Senator Webb for the Disaster Prevention and Resiliency Task Force to review possible policies for future natural disasters. If this passes, where are some areas you hope the task force is?
So I haven't seen the bill. Let me first say that I believe Kentucky Emergency Management and emergency management in all our counties do an incredible job. And every natural disaster, and we've had 13 since I've become governor, 13 federally declared disasters. They learn something new and they add it to the next disaster. You look at our travel trailer program and how that has improved and evolved. I talked about that earlier. You look at now the pre-positioning of those swift boat teams that we talked about. The reason we saved 1,000 people is because we take Louisville's team and move it to a place in the state that was more likely to flood. And the fact that these teams answer that call and they go wherever they're asked and they are ready as the waters rise. Certainly, I've made a request to the General Assembly to consider building out areas that we can have our travel trailer program in all parts of the state. So it took us 2 months after the tornadoes, took us 2 weeks after the 2022 flooding. If we got hit by something that regionally devastating, I only want to take 2 days in the future. And what we know is it takes about $500,000 to go into, say, a campground or another place, because people are going to live in these travel trailers for a year. And so you got to make sure it's got the connection on the gas and on the water. I mean, you have to have an electrician come out. This is like moving in to a small home. So that's one thing that I hope that they would look at. And if we're going to create a task force, I think very quickly it's going to see that capping the amount we're allowed to spend to respond to natural disasters is malpractice when it comes to how you need to respond to natural disasters. And the only thing that does is hurt our people at their most difficult time. But if there's a task force that wants to learn more and become engaged, listen, we're open to it. I'll read the legislation, but there are pieces that we can do. And if this task force would push that, especially moving into a budget session, that could be a good thing. Austin Schick?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I pronounced the last name correctly?
Yes.
Great.
Right. So you mentioned speaking with the legislative branch about, maybe, expanding the funds for this last disaster we had in February. Do you expect them to get that done this session, or do you expect to call a special session?
I expect the legislature should be able to move through and create a safe fund in this session. The only comments I hear is we don't know the full extent of the damage. We won't know it during this session. We won't know it at the time we would call a special session, because we are still dealing with the levels of damage from especially 2022. That's just the way it goes with these widespread disasters we've been hit by. But if it's not done in this session, counties will have to pay out significant amounts of money, waiting reimbursement that could be years later, that is just too costly to then do everything else that a county needs to do, which would set back progress. I think about Pike County and the enormous expenses that it's going to have. The Safe Fund is important to help fill those gaps, to make sure that that county isn't penalized for getting hit by a natural disaster, which they couldn't control at all. It also provides us extra road funding. We just read out how many of those roads are going to take extra repair. We can't fit that into our normal transportation budget without stopping work that's really important throughout the state. But I have faith that it's going to get done. Again, every conversation has been really positive. Any question has been really, really productive. And oftentimes these things come near the very end, but I think they'll get done. And even if they need those last 2 days, this is something that we're all working on together. And I think that there could be more than a little security that if they get it passed, even in the last couple of days, we're going to make sure it goes into effect as quickly as we can. Also, the legislators from the region are champions, especially in Eastern Kentucky for this piece. And of course, it's going to need to be broader than just Eastern Kentucky because of how widespread it is, but it's going to be able to help a lot of communities. Isaiah.
Thank you, Governor. Do you support the Senate effort to create a Kentucky version of DOGE?
So I've been following this bill that would create a Kentucky version of DOGE, except it can't do any of the things that the federal version does. It doesn't have the power to stop any funding, doesn't have the power to lay off any people. So I guess they're calling it that, but that doesn't seem to be what it is. Now, we always want to make sure that our groups are operating well. At the same time, I think when you look at that bill, it adds, for instance, subpoena power in that office. Well, I've heard some comments coming out of that office that have seemed pretty political. And so, my hope is that any changes that we make, especially that confers more power to any constitutional office, that we're being careful in how we're doing it, and that it's going to end up being used for the betterment of the people of Kentucky and not as a political tool. A little concerned about the auditor's office because of how it treated the ombudsman since it's been there. The ombudsman was, in the last session, removed from the Cabinet for Health and Family Services so it could be independent. And it said in the law that it would be independent. But the auditor has repeatedly called it her office, instructed it to do different things, and operationally, by the auditor's own words, I have very serious concern about whether the law was followed into how the ombudsman office operates. So again, if you're conferring additional authority to an office that seems to have exceeded it and how it treated an independent group, a few concerns there.
If I could follow real
Sure.
quick. I'm told that Medicaid, unemployment insurance office would sort of be two of the focuses. Do you believe this could lead to cuts in those?
Well, if the focus of the auditor's office is Medicaid, then why is the General Assembly setting up their own task force and oversight where we'll go and testify and provide all the same documents. What's interesting about this bill is it's almost suggesting that the oversight by the legislature in doing its job when we go and testify about all these things in front of multiple committees. What we're seeing out of the federal government would be disastrous to Kentucky. I mean, first, closing Social Security offices in Eastern Kentucky without understanding our topography means some folks that don't have that money for gas, that are already living off of a small stipend, are going to have to drive hours just to talk to somebody. And typically, these are people that are going to need to talk to somebody face to face the most. And threatened cuts to Medicaid, oh my goodness, would devastate rural health care. And remember, the folks that are on Medicaid are the people we love the most, our kids and our parents. Half of Kentucky's kids are covered by Medicaid. 70% of our long-term care costs are covered by Medicaid. Major cuts from the federal government in Medicaid will impact our kids, will impact our seniors, and will ultimately cause closures of rural hospitals. All right, on the phone, Tom Latek.
Thank you, Governor, and good afternoon. It goes back to something you were speaking about earlier. State Senator Julie Rocky Adams has a bill that has basically just one more step to go to become law, dealing with the issue of sextortion. Do you think that bill goes far enough? And if it passes in its current form and reaches your desk, will you sign it?
Well, I always want to see a bill's final form before it gets to me, and I commit to a signature. But I think it is a positive step in the right direction that's aimed at protecting our children. And I hope that it advances, and I hope that we don't see any of the things we've seen in other instances where we have large-scale committee substitutes. But that's a bill. If it reaches my desk, I'll look forward to fully reviewing it, and any step that we can take to reduce sextortion, especially on our young people, is important. And folks, this happens. I know people that this has happened to, and it can happen to your kids. So watch what they're doing online. Know if your kids are gamers. That's one way that people can reach out. Unsupervised access to social media, especially for younger children, can be really dangerous. So listen, it's a tough world for our kids. It's even tougher if they fall victim to this. It causes significant and severe trauma. So be watching out for them and understand that, yeah, it may seem restrictive to want to see every single thing they look at on social media, but you might also be protecting and saving their life. Karen Czar, WUKY.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Governor. I don't know if Dr. Stack is still available, and this is a question I actually asked you all at the 2-year mark. And with hindsight now, having the gift of hindsight, as we navigated through the pandemic, you and Dr. Stack continued to show the charts that compared St. Louis to Philadelphia, how they worked through the flu pandemic of 1918 to 20. God forbid 100 years from now, the world is facing a similar health crisis. What do you think will be said of Kentucky if they pull up our chart?
So based on the forecast and the prediction, I think we certainly took steps that saved a lot of lives. I also think that God blessed us in a vaccine faster than ever before in human history that helped us come out of this pandemic. I stand by really tough actions that we had to take. We took the best actions and made the best decisions we could with the information that we had. I think in the future, it's disinformation and misinformation and how to combat it, because ultimately those that fall for it are people we care about. I remember having a moment where I was asked again, why are you asking people to do this? And why are you asking people to do that? And the answer is because we care about you and we want you to get through. And we're just trying to give the best advice with the information that we have so that the most Kentuckians could make it through. Certainly advances in science, I hope, are there for the next one and the one after that. But I also hope that in the future, we remember that fighting a virus isn't something that happens in a month. It takes time, and the unity that we started with is something that if we face another virus, we'll probably need to keep up longer than we saw it in some places here. But the final thing I think they'll say about Kentucky is that we were honest. We kept counting our deaths when other states had stopped. We kept counting our cases when other states had stopped. And we believe that's because everyone that this deadly virus took deserved to be counted, deserved to be seen and recognized. And we were going to do it right by the science, regardless of what it showed about us against states that stopped doing that reporting and didn't share that information. Dr. Stack, or did I cover it? Okay, Dr. Stack, this has been a while since I got the answer right by the science. All right, thank you all, and we'll see anybody virtually or in the rotunda at 3 to remember those 20,000 Kentuckians that aren't with us, but the thousands that sacrificed so much. Thanks.